A man was walking in the woods one day when he saw a bear out of the corner of his eye. He stopped, said a silent prayer. God, I know you can do all things. Will you please make this bear a fellow Christian? The bear caught up to the man, placed his paw on the man's shoulder, and said, Brother, will you pray with me? Dear God, for this meal that I am about to receive, make me truly thankful. This is the Christian Bear with Dr. Ben Hilskamp. Welcome to episode 15 of the Christian Bear. I'm your host, Dr. Ben Hilskamp. Today we continue our discussion of faith, specifically as related to the Nicene Creed. The next section of the Creed reads, On the third day he rose again, in accordance with the Scriptures. He ascended to heaven, and is seated at the right hand of the Father. He will come again in glory to judge the living and the dead, and his kingdom will have no end. On the third day he rose again, in accordance with the Scriptures. He ascended to heaven, and is seated at the right hand of the Father. He will come again in glory to judge the living and the dead, and his kingdom will have no end. In our last episode, friends, we discussed how we can work with beliefs that we may not agree with, how we can confront those beliefs. I confess that this is often one of those areas when we talk about Jesus' resurrection that many Christians struggle with. Many Christians can accept the death of Christ on the cross. Death is, in fact, one of the defining characteristics of being human. So many people can deal with the death of Christ. What they have a harder time dealing with, what they have a harder time reconciling with, is the resurrection of Jesus from the dead. But my confession is, this is one of those areas I have never fully struggled with. This, to me, seems like a perfect part of religion. Religion is inherently supernatural. So therefore, that God should rise from the dead does not seem so far-fetched or in need of either deconstruction or reconciliation. Jesus said that the temple would be torn down and rebuilt in 3 days, meaning his own body, and we see that happen. Of course, the interesting part about the resurrection is less that it happened, and more what it must have been like to, having witnessed Jesus die on the cross, his apostles, men and women, gathered in great fear. It is easy to read the Bible and think, why were these people fearful? Did they not have faith that Jesus would come back? Yet they didn't have the foreknowledge that this would happen. So the resurrection is not just about Jesus coming back from the dead. It is not just about the fulfillment of what Jesus said would happen. It is about overcoming fear. It is about placing our faith in something that may or may not actually happen. It is fundamental to many of us, to me definitely, that my belief mirrors my values, mirrors my commitments. That I'm not believing something simply that I might obtain something better. That I am not believing in a transactional relationship with God. That I exchange my belief in order for a residence in paradise. Yet faith is often approached transactionally. We give to God, and really what we do is give to the church what we believe it is owed, in hopes that we will reach heaven, and in that we give up control. We allow ourselves to be controlled by a church or churches, denominations, sects, schools of thought, which may or may not have our best interests at heart. Remember, religion is created by people, and those people fashion God in their likeness. They establish rules, and order and laws, which may or may not be conceived, inspired by, or have any root in divinity, but nevertheless have a root in order and control. Christianity is not the only religion, of course, that is built on this idea of control. Every religion, no matter how well thought of, no matter how idealized, is built on controlling the people who believe in that religion, who attend those congregations. Someone might say, well, what about Zen Buddhism? What about Unitarian Universalism? What about Quakerism? What about ethical culture? These don't seem to be movements based in control. And yes, these are not movements perhaps of the same level of control as Southern Baptists and Mormons and the Roman Catholic Church. However, still, these are corporate bodies. These are people that have come together and have said, we will outline for, even just for ourselves, laws and policies and procedures that we hope will be applied fairly and correctly, but nevertheless can be distorted over time. And yes, we need leaders in our communities, but our leaders in Christianity are called by Jesus to be shepherds. The good shepherd who will leave the 99 behind and go and find the one that is lost. David Hayward, a Christian pastor and artist, has some wonderful drawings of Jesus, again portrayed as the Good Shepherd, seeking the lost who have been put out by the church. Not those that have become lost on their own, but those that have been put aside, have been kicked out of churches. Often in Hayward's art, those sheep wear rainbow and trans-affirming colors. So it is not Jesus who seeks out the lost, would not live by the rules of the community, and therefore became lost from the community, but rather those who were shunned by the community, who were put out by the community, who the community said to, we want nothing to do with you. Those are the lost sheep that Jesus goes and finds. And it is that model that Christian leaders are called to. It is that model, in fact, that leaders in all areas of life, in all religions, are called to. To be servants rather than bosses. To be servants rather than executives. I started this episode by saying that we would look at beliefs that are easy for us. What beliefs, my friends, are easy for you? What beliefs do you realize are easy for you, but may be hard for others? This has been The Christian Bear with Dr. Ben Hillscamp.